Die heutige Sendung wird präsentiert von Bechli Bergsport und Petzel.
The main accusation in the media, the main critics is that the IFSC does not enough to fight the issue. Is this critics legit?
Well, you know, before criticizing, people should know and should follow. I mean, I think that this critics is coming from someone that does not follow the IFSC life. So they receive information from someone who left the organization for his own reason, and I think that we live in democracy. This is an open organization. You discuss, you don't agree, you leave. But then what happened afterward, it was not good. You leave the organization, you say your reason why you leave the organization, but then you spend not all your life and your energy criticizing and attacking the organization. So this generated this situation where many media listen to this criticism, and then with the social media work, I'm a journalist, so and then he went on and on and on. It's going on and on and on. It's not true. It's not true because over the year, the IFSC took measures in order to prevent what is called today the REDES, but until last year, there was no way to call it REDES because the BMI was the reigning factor with which we were supposed to stop athletes. Because the real problem is that we try over the year to find a way to prevent climbers to fall in what is called today the REDES, and then eventually, if we verify that not all the measures are in place to protect the athlete, then we could intervene. And even last year, even this year, we have the ability, we have the possibility to stop a climber, to stop a license on the climber, not to disqualify a climber, because you cannot disqualify because you think that someone is unhealthy. But of course, these are not public. But if you go to the website, you see everything. Last year, we were using BMI as an indicator, those below the limit set by the medical commission. Their national federation were required to send a series of medical tests. If the medical tests were considered sufficient by the medical commission, then the climbers could go on and compete. If the medical tests were not considered sufficient, then we would say, your license is suspended. It didn't happen. This year we went on. In March, the board made a decision, very interesting, where actually we say, okay, this year we ask National Federation to provide the IFSC in advance all these medical certifications, blood test, psychological, assessment, etc., etc. Because we said, look, we will do our BMI, MI testing, screenings, and then if we see that your athlete is below what we call the limit, then if you if you hadn't provided us with the medical all these medical certifications, your athletes might be suspended. Some federations collaborated, some federations didn't collaborate, and so when we realized that these federations were not really compliant, we gave them two weeks to be compliant. And so all the climbers that were, let's say, under the limit are covered by this medical test made by the National Federation. Our mistake this year was that we could not run the screening in the first events of the year. Why? Because last year the medical commissions was available to do the test all year long. This year in the beginning they were not. They were not for their reason, because they are volunteers, so they could not. We were a bit surprised by this situation, so in order to recover it took some time, and so for the first 4 or 5 competitions we didn't run the screening, and this clearly was our fault.
For the implementation of strict measurements and also like setting rules that exclude the athlete if he doesn't meet the requirements, is it the IFSC as an international federation or national federation, coaches, athletes themselves? Who's responsible?
This is the law of sport. Clearly there are different responsibilities at different levels. What is important is that we understand that the athletes are registered by their own national federations. So we assume that athletes registered by the national federations are healthy, because it's the national federation who have to check the health of the athletes. We know that not all national federations are well organized, and therefore maybe they are not so active in protecting the athletes. Therefore, we set this parameter within which the athletes have, need to be inside these parameters. But just to conclude what I was saying before, in March, the board said and stated that from 2024, we will implement the IFSC REDES policy. That will be a 300-degree screenings of our athletes to be sure that they are not in what is called the red zone. I try to simplify.
And you will do the screenings of that set of rules you set up? Or who's doing the screenings and the measurements?
We will do the screening and the measurement. But we also said a couple of other things. We said that we were waiting for the final REDES policy from the IOC, because this is under review. There is a consensus statement going back to 2 or 3 years ago. It's coming out now at the end of August, because we said our policy must be aligned with the IOC policy. We cannot imagine that they say this is the limit and we say something completely different. Also because there are legal implications. If we decide to suspend someone and then we go, the National Olympic Committee of that country sue us, and we have to go to CAS, to whom you think the arbitrator or the judge will believe? To us or to the IOC? I mean, if the IOC said 5 red or whatever, and we say no, 6 black, well, probably we are not in trouble to support our position.
So does the IFSC have a problem with the confrontation with national federations or athletes who could go to court with the IFSC?
No, the problem could be that we decide to suspend the license to an athlete, and then this athlete and his or her federation can sue us, say no, because we think you made an abuse, you didn't have the right to stop me. It happens also in other sports, it's not for different reasons. Also medical reason. You know the transgender blah blah blah. They are always at CAS complaining, you suspend me, da 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 da.
Austria has like a BMI limit for many years, and they never had like problems with athletes going to court with them. Do you think there is that risk of the IFSC being brought to court?
On BMI, we have been told for years from some in the medical commission that the BMI was a sufficient factor to stop an athlete, disqualify an athlete, because this was the wording that was used all the time. But then when we start talking with the IOC, we start talking with our lawyers and no, it's not. And the fact that Austria, out of 98 countries we have, is the only country that is using BMI as a discriminating factor, probably this proves that maybe universally the BMI is not accepted. And even if it was said that Germany is using BMI as a discriminating factor, no, because Germany has a system very close to the IFSC that prefer to try all the possibility to protect and to, prevent the problem rather than sanction the problem. Because if you have the sanction and to stop an athlete means that the athlete is sick. And we don't want to have a sick athlete, we want to have a healthy athlete.
So what's your roadmap? When will you implement which rules and which...
The rules, as I said, are already in place. So there is no doubt. And if someone is saying that we don't have rules, then it's a lie. Because we have rules, we had rules, we made stricter rules this year, and we will stricter rules next year. Stricter rules, I cannot say really stricter rules. Actually, we will using a completely set of information. Because REDES, is a complex analysis of the individual, including psychological tests, etc., etc. And we know that many federations are doing it. And and they are really following the athlete. The discrimination is not being skinny or not being skinny, because one of the big issues that started to create some suspicion in our organization when we heard members of the medical commission saying we don't want to see skinny athletes, we don't want to see skinny girls. Say, no, this is not a medical approach. Because then what about Eliud Kipchoge, the marathon runner?
Mm-hmm.
See how is he skinny? Well, a little bit. But he's followed by 2 doctors, a nutritionist. This is the way to do it. Clearly in sport, people lose weight, in all sports, except very few. And in some sports like rowing and boxing, they kill themselves. We need to find a way where if someone decides to lose weight, he does it or she does it in the proper way. Not because, just I don't eat, and then you start to eat, and then it's where the issue starts. But BMI is not necessarily an indicator of eating disorder or disordered eating. That's what we understood over a year, and this is where the clash is.
But looking at the competition athletes at the moment, you said there were clear measurements at the beginning of the year, and last year you did the body mass index. Do you think at the moment our athletes are all healthy?
According to the information we have, they are all healthy because, as I said, especially those who are under the BMI limit, because the only element we are using at the moment, we receive all the documentation that the medical commission decided to have from their medical doctors. So again, this is a reality. We cannot say, oh, the BMI is X and cannot be that the person is healthy. This is bullshit, really bullshit.
I think everybody agrees that the BMI is not the right indicator, but like a bigger approach or a holistic approach is needed. But still, if you measure all those things you can measure, you think our athletes at the moment there is no athlete with eating disorder or RADS problems?
I think it's like doping. We cannot exclude that someone is ill. This is a social problem. It's not a problem of climbing. Climbing has a problem, no. Society has a problem. And as soon as we have the right approach, it's a global problem, and we have an holistic approach, then we will find a solution. And we want to turn our sport, or sport in general, as a model to help the society, to avoid the eating disorder. But this requires time. It requires solid regulation, and because if we fail, then somehow we will authorize those who are unhealthy to go on. And we want to have a temporary measure. Now someone said, okay, put weight on the harness, and they say, if we put weight on the harness and someone is unhealthy, he or she doesn't recover because he or she remains unhealthy with the weight. We need to find other solution, not just say, okay, you look, I stop you. And it's not only the legal risk, it's also a different approach, because we are a sport that is not based on sanction, it's based on values, and in our case is based on protection and prevention. That doesn't mean that someday, maybe already next year, we will have to say to someone, sorry, you are not healthy. But at the moment, with the measure that we have at the moment, we receive all the papers, all the documents, the blood test, the psychological test, all what was set by the medical commission. It's not me, because I'm not an expert in the field. So I can say that for what is set with the current measurement, all the athletes are healthy.
That's
or they are
interesting.
fit to compete, because this is the sentence.
Because we talk to coaches, national federation, many athletes, and to me it seems like if I summarize those opinions, that they all think we have a huge problem in our sport with eating disorder. There's many athletes saying we had that. Anke Aito from Austria, Sophia Yokoyama from Switzerland, they all said, yeah, we had big problems and it was unhealthy what I did. But as I understand now, you say, well, we don't have a problem. with
No,
eating disorder?
we of course we have a problem. I mean, in the United States, 8% of the population is affected by eating disorders. Okay? But among the climbers we test, we receive what the medical commission considers as sufficient documentation in order to allow them to consider them healthy or fit to compete. Maybe next year, with a 360-degree spectrum of documents, we will see that, but we can have some surprise. Because, and this is also the key point to understand, the abuse of the BMI. You can have also, let's say, positive BMI and eating disorders. That's why we want to be sure that everybody is healthy, not those who are skinny. This is the misunderstanding.
So do you think, or will it also happen in case in 2024 an athlete is stated unhealthy, that you take away the license? Will you do that? You are forced to do that by the rules, right?
Say, we will do it for sure. And I can tell you, if we had recognized anybody unhealthy, we would have done it already, like anywhere. But you need procedures. This was clearly, it's not because of a legal risk, it's that we also, for example, here we are starting the Olympic qualification. Imagine that we had gone in the way the two doctors who resigned they wanted. They wanted to proceed without any approval of the medical commission, because even inside the medical commission, they all not agree on the same procedure and the same concept. So they didn't have the consensus inside the medical commission, and they wanted to go on their own way without the executive board approval. This is a suicide, not to say more.
Looking back, let's say 5 years, what could the IFSC have done better in terms of that issue and solving the problems around the issue?
Seeing how things are developing now, we should have talked to other people outside the commission earlier. And probably would have... we listen too much to those who are claiming the BMI. We spent 25,000 euros on, last year in order to adjust the BMI with the MI. Yes, I regret that we did not start working with the expert outside, especially the IOC, before.
Looking forward, in July you published a statement saying that in 2024 the IFSC will adapt a holistic approach not based solely on BMI parameters. Yeah. Will you implement mandatory rules before the Olympics and exclude athletes from competitions if they don't meet the requirements?
Yes, but you see also in terms of procedure, how could have we implemented rules that are not really approved or aligned with international rule or whatever in this qualification year? Then imagine if I had excluded someone, and then all of a sudden that this person that we excluded this year, with the new rules next year, he or she would appear as eligible to compete. Well, this would have been unfair. Instead, we could say, okay, for example, if you find someone who qualified this year, next year in a healthy, we say, now we have the proof, the evidence that you are unhealthy, according to procedure, blah, 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 and then you don't go to the Olympics.
A last question, what's your promise for 2024 to the athletes out there competing at IFSC competitions?
It's not a problem, it's a request that I made in the forum. Be active in your national federation, because all start for the national federation. Many of our national federations don't have an athlete commission. Create your athlete commission. Make your voice heard in your federation. Force your federation to protect you, because all started there. Start in a club, in a sport club. Well, in Europe, in America is a bit different. Start in a climbing gym, start with your federation. Sport is education. It's your federation, and also us, we are not able to educate you, the problem will remain. Because even sanctioning the athletes, the problem will remain, because it's a social problem. Let's turn this into a different challenge with the help of the media. Let's make the IFSC and climbing as a sport model, where actually we fight, like we fight against doping, we fight against eating disorders, in the right way, in the proper moment. And then, again, sport is education. So, sport is a social tool. We work for a better world through climbing, in the right way, for this, which is huge. because 88% of the population of the United States, I said, is suffering for eating disorder. It's unbelievable.
So you say, talk to your national federations so they do more to prevent this issue, but the International Federation is responsible for the rules.
The International Federation is responsible for the rule, but in first step, the National Federation is responsible for the health of the athlete. We have to be sure that the athletes are healthy, and we will do our best, but we cannot. The IFSC will not be able to make the REDES to 2,500 athletes. So we will make some screening and some tests and something, but it will be just a few athletes that will be screened, because it's impossible. So this, you see, we need the collaboration of all the stakeholders, all the but we need the collaboration also the media in order to create a new culture that is based on well-being, not on the fact, if you don't weigh this, you don't compete. And they move to another sport, this is not changing their status, they're not changing their health. So I understand that someone wants to go faster, someone wants to go slower, and this is the role of an international federation, try to find a way in between, but then, when we start, we do it. And we are doing it, it's working pretty well, I think, because already this year we saw federations are more and more involved, and we had a workshop in Singapore at the General Assembly. There were a lot of questions. We had the intervention of some people from the IOC. We had intervention of psychologists because, going back to Kipchoge. Eliud Kipchoge is followed by 2 doctors, a nutritionist, a psychologist, etc., etc. Clearly he looks skinny, but you probably need that. But we are sure that there is someone competent that is taking care of his health. And this is what we want to have. So not to say, you're skinny, you're out. No, you're skinny, so we want to be sure that everything is fine with you. But at the same time, you are not skinny, we want to be sure that the same things applies to you. And then, I made the example of this marathon runner to say that not be confused by what an athlete look like, because this could be the biggest mistake we make. Because if we exclude, because first sport is inclusion and not exclusion. And the day we make a mistake and we exclude someone because we think that he or she is unhealthy and he or she is healthy, then what will be the consequence on these athletes? So at the end of the day, we need to protect all the athletes. And to protect all the athletes, it means working all together to make them aware of the problem, and this is happening now. That's why I'm nothing against this, as long as it's done in the proper way. As long as the athletes are not used to get the center stage, this for me is not acceptable. The athletes should focus on their activity, make their claim, and the doctors have to do their job, we have to do our job, national federations. But again, we want to protect the athletes, we don't want to sanction the athletes. Of course, maybe sometime we will have to say, no, sorry, you have to recover from your situation. But we want to be sure that when we say it with all the elements that will not really penalize the athletes.
Do you think some national federations who have stricter rules than others have a disadvantage in competition?
Why? I understand partially the...
Once in my life I lost a lot of weight suddenly, and I realized, I can hold those crimps for a long time. So I was like, that's an advantage. So do you think national federations who don't protect their athletes that much, they have lighter athletes, they can climb better, at least in the short term, than others? So do you think there is like a disadvantage in competition?
No, this is, I understand now. This is another story that is connected to weight, but it's another story. So one thing is the health of the athlete, and the other thing is how national federations or coaches, especially coaches, could use weight as a sort of doping, let's say. Actually, okay, the less you weigh, the better you perform. That's not necessarily true. For that, we are trying to find other measures. For example, I think that the influence of coaches or national federations is much stronger on athletes that are immature. When you are 14 or 15, you believe in anything that your coach is telling to you. Maybe also at 16, 17, a little less, because you have the possibility to talk with other athletes and or other people. Then we increase the minimum age limit for official competition to 17. It looks a small thing, but it's big, and probably will go to 18. So it means that to be world champion, even youth world champion, you need to be 17. Now, before it was 14. Well, it takes 2 years, because we cannot cancel one category like this, and so on. It looks so. Also, we are working with route setters. Because maybe weight is really important on slabs, maybe on crimpies, but if you make some movement, well, if you don't have the gas in your muscles, then maybe you don't have there are a lot of things out of this kind of measure that we can take, that we are aware of that. We will make a study also soon to see how really lower weight give you better performance. I think we are going that direction. We are talking with the route setter almost every day, because they are the category that is most under pressure, because now the challenge is not only to provide a great show to the audience in the venue, but also to TV. And in bouldering, for example, if you have a first boulder in the sequence that is not attractive, then at the second is attractive. People here, we don't care. You are excited by the second boulder. Maybe on television they move to another channel. So you see, this is part of the conversation we are having with route setters. They are aware of the problem, and clearly, it's not changing the rules of the game. It's changing the way they have to climb, and therefore adapt your body. In speed, we will never have underweight people, otherwise they stop in the middle of the route. But also, you see, we need to find a balance, because we cannot change climbing in just powerful power games.
So what's your shout out? Because we're going to implement it in our video. What's your shout out to all the people that are criticizing the IFSC, who publish stuff in the internet, to prepare events, to raise awareness? What's your shout out to those people?
Keep on talking, because as I said, we as an Olympic sport, we are under the spotlight. So keep on talking, keep on criticizing, as long as you do it in a polite way, is fine. Today we live in the era of the social media, so we cannot say don't criticize, because actually they start criticizing more. Don't expect that we read all the posts everywhere and we respond to all the posts. Pay more attention to what we are doing. Maybe visit our website, send us letter, but always try to do it through the national federations, because without the national federations it will be very difficult to grow the sport in a healthy way. We also know, you mentioned it, more money is coming, the TV, etc., so the pressure is high. We try to compensate this with the age limit and other things, but national federations are really key. I don't want to say, okay, I want to discharge our responsibility. No, absolutely not. That's why we are here. But if we don't work on it all together, then it will be at least more difficult. So try to reach out to your national federation, talk with them, reach out to us, fine. But we are climbers, just with mutual respect. We respect each other, we respect different positions, we respect different views, but respect is our key factor, is our DNA.
With those new rules you implemented, or you will change and implement in the future, is there clear rules for every national federation so that they're all on the same level, or how is that?
Okay, so we are in the process to assess the rules, clearly. We are waiting for this final document for the IOC. We have our policy, REDES policy, that we drafted by the medical commission, I think in May, June. So we need to align the two policies. Already there are some contacts between the IOC expert and our medical commission. Then yes, we need to see whether, well, one idea is, as I said, that in the license request, all federation has also to declare the REDES score, because it's a score. You ask a series of medical tests, and then to the result of each test you give points, and at the end the score should be, well, depending on the score, you are normal zone, orange zone, or red zone. And if you are in the red zone, say, well, this element you cannot compete, or at least since you are unhealthy, I mean, try to recover and do something else. So we don't know exactly how we will implement it. Also, we need to see how we can make the screening, because the screening will be much more complicated. You know, now with BMI you can do anytime, anywhere. But I think we will be ready to publish it very soon. On national federations, yes. I mean, if we go in the direction that to get the license you need to declare the score, they will have to follow this. But then, again, on national level, they could be stricter, lighter, or whatever. But we will try to force them to provide us the data aligned with the international standard.
You will try to force them, by rules, they're forced to provide the...
No. Yes, if we decide, this is under discussion, if we decide you have to provide a REDES score, then you have to provide a REDES score. But then the way you manage your national competition, the access to your competition, etc., is their problem, it's not ours. So it would be quite crazy to have maybe someone competing on national level and not international, and vice versa. But, you know.
But that could be the case, right?
No, could be the case, because, I mean, you could have... we will have Austria going on with BMI, I think. So you will have athletes that, in theory, are eligible for the international level, but they cannot compete in Austria, so they will never be registered. This is theory. And on the other countries, we really want to force them to set in place a system of measurement. It might be difficult. I expect some federation will say, sorry guys, we don't have the money to do it, and then we will see what to do, because this is costly. Eh? I mean, all the blood tests, all the psychological tests, it requires quite a lot of work. So also there will be probably a transition period when we say, okay, from and then let's see. But you know, again, in order to work on prevention, it's important that people are aware of what we are doing, that they know that we are going that direction. That's why I'm saying we accept criticism, I mean, the more we talk, the better it is. As long as we realize that we are all working in the same direction, then maybe the timeline is different for various reasons.
So by 2024, there will be no set of rules that are mandatory for the national federations. They deliver you the data, and if somebody is below that score, his license is taken away.
So yes,
no matter what on national level happens.
Yes. So, but imagine clearly if let's put some theoretical figures. Let's imagine that 10 is the limit of this REDES score. I imagine that nobody will apply for a license if the climber has less than 10, because automatically we say, excuse me, this guy is 9, so he or she cannot apply. Then maybe we will make the screening in some occasion to some climbers, and we verify that the score that has been declared is correct.
Just to understand again, I mean,
yes.
Let's imagine an athlete now has a score of 8.
Yes.
He's competing because at the moment he's not screened, or there is no exclusion. But next year you set rules, national federations have to measure. They measure and they say, oh, he's 8. You will then say, no license.
No license, but we expect that the national federation is not asking for a license. You understand what I mean? Because if they ask for a license, they declare 8, they say, look, this is not receivable.
But if it's an athlete who's like, let's say, who's taking part in the Olympics, who has an Olympic ticket, they will have to try to apply somehow.
I see, but we say, excuse me, but according to your REDES, go back to 10 and then you compete. So it's not, I mean, if you suspend or don't give the license, it's not forever. It's done because we hope and we push you to go to an acceptable limit, where the limit of being healthy. If you are below this limit, you are considered unhealthy, so an unhealthy athlete cannot compete.
But aren't you afraid that some of the athletes, one of the best athletes in the world, will have problems to meet the requirements and then will be excluded?
But if they are not meeting the requirement, they are excluded or suspended until they meet the requirement. What I mean is, okay, I'm 8. I say, Mr. Mrs., you have to be 10 in order to compete. Come back when you are 10. And then he or she comes back, is 10, 11, 12, and then he or she competes again.
But the score isn't, you
it's
don't
not
have
forever.
a score. No, but you don't have the score right now yet. So
no.
Let's imagine,
no.
I mean, an athlete would have to prepare to gain weight until the Olympics. I mean, otherwise there would be a huge scandal, no?
Yes, but again, that's why we will publish. We are waiting, it's a matter of days. We will publish our policy, I think September, late September, early October at the latest. So all federations will be able to prepare themselves for next year. They have 3 months this year and then 3 months when the season starts. I think they have sufficient time. Then again, the serious federation, they all say that the best organized federation are already monitoring their athletes. So they know exactly what is happening. And the REDES is not something that is totally ignored. There are these parameters that will vary, but in general, they know. In the National Olympic Committee, they know what it is. So they can be prepared for that. But you see, and you mentioned the problem, this year we don't have the parameters yet. So how could we exclude someone who could qualify for the Olympics and when parameters are applying next year? It would have not been sustainable. So you exclude me on next year parameters, sorry, then I could have adapted my weight or anything to those parameters. You see how difficult it is, no? It's not so simple. It's not just say, okay, No, the goal is a common goal for everybody, clearly. But as I said, if you start saying this is not climbing has a problem, the society has a problem, because otherwise we look like, okay, no. Climbing is a sport where weight is important, like most of the sports. Well, we mentioned marathon, maybe it's really even too much, but also cycling and gymnastic. Weight. Any move you make, the more you weight, the more difficult it is. This is clear.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, no, my pleasure. Thank you.